Okay, today I'm going to show you how to apply veneer stripping, and I have a big giant roll of it that's over on the counter. I usually buy 250-foot rolls, so there should be lots there for you. The idea of it is to hide the plywood edges, because that's not typically seen as very nice looking in fine furniture. So a little bit nicer way to do it is to use the solid birch or solid hardwood material. It's got glue in the back, but the glue is only heat activated. So we've got our iron as hot as it'll go. Be careful with that you don't burn yourself. And then what we do is we take scissors, and normally this is attached to a roll, and we're gonna roughly cut out how long we need. We're then going to line this up. Now it's really important that you don't line this up with even with the edge right here. You want to actually overlap it just a little bit, so you can't see that. You want to line it up with that plywood edge to make it look as if it's a solid piece of wood. That's what we're trying to do, is make it look like solid hardwood. So we're going to start at one end, line it up, get our iron on it. If you hold it too long, it's just like clothes, it's going to burn. And you work yourself from one end to the other, making sure that you don't burn your cord. Get it good and hot. And what I do is I take and snip off the opposite end. You can also do that ahead of time, but it's a little easier. While it's still hot, you want to take your J-roller, which is in this yellow bucket that I keep over in the cupboard above the drills, so you know where to find that. And you roll it and squish it so that all the glue gets squished into the pores of the wood, and it'll stay there. Now, if you have kind of an uneven surface, you might need to also take your fingers and just kind of squish it in and work it in. Now that that's cool, just gonna take our sandpaper, and we just got a really coarse sandpaper, really rough, wrapped around a block. And there's different ways to do this, but this is the easiest way that I've found. And you just hold it on an angle, being careful not to sand on the face. You want to hold it on about a 45-degree angle and sand it until that edge starts to get thin. So we're not quite there yet. So now we're getting pretty close. You can see that as I peel that, and I always peel it down away from it, that it peels off nicely. And then I'm just going to take my sandpaper at the end, just sand that a little bit. Always sanding away, not up, because otherwise you'll rip that off. Okay, the same at the back. Now we don't have to be really perfect at this point, because we're going to do a final sanding on the whole project with a palm sander. But for what we're doing, that's plenty good. If you find that there's a bit of a air bubble or a spot that's loose, just heat it up, squish it back down again, and it should be good to go. There you go. Then we're going to continue across here, and I like to do the ends first. And when you're doing this, you always hang the extra stuff, because this is 1 inch wide and our plywood is 3/4. So we hang the extra stuff over the outside edge, and then it's easy to sand off. If you hung it over the inside edge, then you got to worry about notching this out, and it looks kind of silly. Once you have the ends done, you never want to overlap this. Make sure you cut this as straight and square as you can. Then you're going to place that up to that edge, remembering that there's now a piece right here. Push it right up against, and make sure that it's the full length, that's going to be the right length up here. So you're going to have to cut one end square, line it up over here, cut it off, iron it on with the outside edge. And then lastly, we do our shelves in the same manner, where you just butt it up against, make sure it's even, no gaps, and then you just sand off that inside edge. Now, with the shelves, it can get a little bit tricky. So I'm just gonna pretend that we have that already there, that side already there, and this is gonna work out. And this is a student's project. Oh, I should have cut that first. And you know what? Sometimes it's easier just to cut it after with a utility knife, but I also am a little nervous with grade 7s with utility knives. So you take your utility knife, only put the knife out, the blade out a little tiny bit. Always cut across from yourself or away from yourself. And then you're going to that off nice and even. I'm gonna heat that up again. And I'm just gonna peel off that stuff that I just cut. Make sure you have a sharp blade. There. So this would have been a lot easier if I had to cut that off first. Now I can sand across with this material. And you'll see in a minute why I wanted to show you this. So I'm getting it fairly thin. To the point where it wants to peel off, but sometimes it's hard to get tight into that corner. So you can actually take that utility knife and just slice up away from yourself. Might have to put the blade out a little bit more for this one. Away from yourself up to that corner. Okay, now you might ask yourself, why couldn't you use the knife the whole time? Well, I have tried that before, and sometimes the knife likes to follow the wood grain so it can tear off inside of it. And that is putting veneer edging on, and that'll make it look a lot nicer.